that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another Path of Exile 1 video. Today we're going to be going over my League Starter Guide for patch 3.29, Curse of the All-Flame League. Let's begin. Our starting class is Witch, our Ascendancy is Elementalist, and our skill of choice is going to be Eviscerate. Eviscerate is a retaliation skill, and it cannot be used by default. Instead, it becomes usable when you block a hit with your character. The skill attacks in a V pattern, and the damage it deals cannot be evaded, is guaranteed to cause a bleed, and goes on cooldown after being used. The skill, by itself, is janky as hell, but to compensate, you're going to be dealing a massive amount of damage. Now that we've talked about Eviscerate, let's quickly go over the other half of the build, which is Ignite. Ignite is a status ailment that deals fire damage over time. The base duration is 4 seconds, and the amount of damage we deal depends on our skill's fire damage. This is where the Elementalist Ascendancy comes in. With Shaper of Flame, we get 2 bonuses to Ignite. First, all our hits are guaranteed to ignite the enemy, which means we do not have to use gear or passives to increase our chance to ignite. Second, the amount of damage our Ignite deals is sourced from all types of damage. This means that cold, lightning, chaos, and physical damage now contribute to our Ignite DPS. Nice! Combine these two mechanics together and we get a fully functional build. Ignite lasts 4 seconds and Eviscerate hits once every 3 seconds, meaning we now have full damage uptime. Eviscerate also attacks in a V pattern, meaning there's a pesky little dead zone in the middle where enemies can't get hit. If you add Ignite Proliferation to the mix, your Ignites are going to spread like wildfire to cover the entire screen, including that dead zone in the middle. With the skill explained, let's talk about how we scale damage. Shaper of Flame allows any damage type to contribute to Ignite. This means we want flat elemental, chaos, and physical damage to attacks on our gear. Next, we want to scale increased fire damage because Ignite still deals fire damage over time. If this seems confusing, I'll use a bucket of lava analogy. We can throw all our damage types into the bucket to fill it up. Shaper of Flame is going to melt all that shit into lava, and then we're going to toss that lava at our enemies in the form of Ignite to deal fire damage. For exactly the same reason, we also want to scale increased fire damage over time multiplier, decreased enemy fire resistances, and Ignite deals damage faster. That last one is a bit interesting. It lowers the overall duration of the Ignite to deal the same amount of damage in a shorter period of time. If you're a smooth brain like me, it means DPS go up. These are the primary vectors for scaling the damage of the build. We're also going to be using secondary vectors like Shock, Exposure, Burning Ground, and Tinctures to deal more damage, but more on that later. With damage scaling out of the way, let's talk about defenses. Eviscerate requires us to block in order to attack, so naturally we want to invest into block chance. The red map configuration puts us at 77% attack block and 78% spell block, which means we're going to be mitigating most of the incoming damage. All we need now is a big enough life pool to survive unblocked hits, and enough life recovery to top ourselves up before we get hit again. We do this using life regeneration, life gain on block, and energy shield recovery. We're also going to get 3 endurance charges when we block, which lowers the physical and elemental damage that we take, and Shaper of Flame is going to convert a portion of physical damage taken to fire. Later on in the game, you'll also want to use Aegis Aurora, which will turn you into a literal tank that cannot be killed except by the hardest hitting abilities in the game. Nice. Speaking of Aegis, let's talk itemization. For this segment, I'll be referring to the red map configuration in Path of a Building. For our weapon, we want to use Rebuke of the Vaal. This is a unique sword that will have our enemies tasting the rainbow. It's going to add a ton of flat damage to Eviscerate, which is going to increase the DPS of our Ignite. For our shield, we want to use Leper's Alms. This is a unique shield with a respectable block chance and increased duration of ailments modifier. We use this until we can afford Aegis Aurora, which is a very expensive shield that recovers a portion of your energy shield when you block. This is not something you should expect to have on League Start, and all of the footage in this video was captured without it. For our chest, we want to use Incandescent Heart. This is a unique chest that adds a portion of our elemental damage as extra chaos damage. This is applied to the base damage bucket to increase our overall Ignite DPS. As a downside, we also take a portion of elemental damage as chaos, so make sure to have 75% chaos resistance before putting on this chest. For your belt, you want to use Daedian Dawn. This is a unique belt that makes your ignites deal damage faster. This is a massive DPS increase for the build, and it also comes with a modest amount of life and resists. Use Turbulent Catalyst to add quality for more damage, and make sure to have enough ailment duration before you put this on, or your ignites are going to fizzle before you make the enemy sizzle. For our first ring, we want to use Polaric Devastation. This is a unique ring that covers enemies in Ash when we ignite them. Ash is a debuff, and it's going to increase the amount of fire damage enemies take. Make sure to equip this in the left ring slot in order to get it to work. For our second ring, we want to use Barracks Respite. This is a unique ring that ignites nearby enemies on kill. You can combine this with Ignite Proliferation on your gloves to spread ignites from one enemy to another. Without this combo, the ignites cannot spread. If you find that confusing, leave a comment down below and I'll explain that mechanic to you the best I can. For our amulet, we want a rare Citrine or Jade amulet with life, flat damage to attacks, damage over time multiplier, and dexterity. This can be crafted using Deafening Essence of Sorrow or bought from another player via trade. Anoint this amulet with Testudo to get increased block chance and some life gain on block. For the rest of our gear, we want to use Armor, Energy Shield Hybrid rares with life, resistances, and defenses. Make sure to prioritize movement speed on boots because we don't have a lot of mobility on this build. For Eldritch Implicits, we're going to start simple. Use Exarch Embers on your gloves to get Ignite Proliferation, and use Eater Ichors on your hat to reduce enemy life regeneration rate. Proliferation is going to improve our clear, and reducing regen is going to improve our single target damage. For flasks, we want 2 Divine Life Flasks, 1 Quicksilver Flask, 1 Sulfur Flask, and 1 Prismatic Tincture. Block is useless against damage over time, so we want to leverage our Life Flask modifiers as a defensive layer against dots. Our first Life Flask should have Bleed and Corrupted Blood removal, and the second one should have Ignite removal. For the Quicksilver Flask, instill it to activate when charges are full, and try to get affixes that improve uptime or effectiveness. For the Sulfur Flask, we can instill it to activate when hitting a rare or unique enemy. This is going to give you a little bit of damage and place Consecrated Ground on the floor, which gives us life regeneration. Try to get affixes that improve duration and increase armor for this flask. Last but not least, we want a Prismatic Tincture. Tinctures are flasks that have a cooldown instead of using charges. Activating it drains our mana to improve our damage. The mana drain accelerates, so eventually you will run out of mana and the tincture will turn off and go on cooldown. You can activate this when fighting the map boss or a very tanky rare, and try to get affixes that increase the cooldown recovery rate and provides damage over time multiplier during the effect. For bandits, we want to help Alira in Act 2. We use a lot of uniques in this build, so we're going to want the extra elemental resistances. When your gear improves, you can spec out of this and kill all bandits instead to get an extra passive skill point. For our Pantheons, we want to use Major Soul of the Brine King, which gives us stun mitigation and immunity to freeze. And we also want to use Minor Soul of Rizlatha, which further reduces enemy life regeneration rate. If you're finding Burning Ground to be a problem, you can also use Minor Soul of Abarath instead. That's going to give you immunity to burn ground effects. And that's it for the itemization section of the video. Next up, we have the passive skill tree section, and the first thing I want you to do is open up the Path of Building. I've put a stupid amount of effort into optimizing the configurations. It contains everything you need from passives, skill gems, and gear examples from the campaign all the way until your Atlas progression is done. Make sure to check the notes down below for a walkthrough of what skill gems to get and when. What I really want to talk about right now though is the transition into Eviscerate. We do Acts 1 to 3 with Kinetic Fusillade, and we swap into Eviscerate after killing Azaro. Our next transition occurs at the end of White Maps. This is when we do a big Respec to transition out of Glancing Blows. We basically remove a bunch of damage nodes to put it into block and spell block so we don't go squish when we start yellow maps. The last transition is for our red map configuration. This is an optimization angle that removes passives we took in the campaign to allocate more efficient ones that are now available to us in the endgame. This might be confusing for some of you, so I'm going to walk you through everything I just talked about. Okay, so we're going to start with the transition from Wands to Eviscerate in Act 3. If you've been playing Kinetic Fusillade, your skill tree looks something like this. Basically, we took a bunch of spell damage at the start of the Witch tree, and we also took some spell damage nodes in the Templar side of the tree. Right, when you're swapping to Eviscerate, you want to remove all that spell damage, and you want to spend it on block nodes and Glancing Blow here. This is going to put you near the block cap chance so that Eviscerate procs more consistently. Okay, in order to do this, you need your 2 points in intelligence over here. Then we can respec out of the spell damage node. You should have plenty of resistances now, so you can remove Frostwalker, which we use for Merveil. Right, then you want to remove Light of Divinity here. Then you want to apply the refunds. And then you're going to go down here and you're going to spend the remaining points on shield block chance. Depending on how many points you have, you might want to get these small nodes right now as well. There's also a shield mastery that is going to give you a chance to block attack damage. Right, you put all that in, and that's what the swap looks like in Act 3. You should now be able to use Eviscerate. Alright, so we've killed Kitava, and your passive tree probably looks a little something like this. As you progress through white maps, you're going to be spending your points on Strength, making a Skilgrimage all the way to the bottom left side of the tree. Okay, so in between the Marauder and Duelist area. Why are we doing this? That's because there is a Retaliation cluster here that's really good for our character, and there's a bunch of block nodes that we need if we want to switch out of Glancing Blows. When you get to yellow maps, Glancing Blows is going to start to get your character killed, so you want to get rid of this keystone as soon as possible. So how are we going to do this massive respec? We're basically going to remove some damage nodes and get rid of this Templar area in this middle, and we're going to spend all those points on getting block and defensive nodes instead. Okay, so how are we going to get from where we are to where we want to be? Well, you're going to start by refunding these minion damage nodes, okay? Remove that entire cluster, and you're going to spend those points making a connection from the Witch start area to this branch of the tree. So you're going to take Intelligence, 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 and Intelligence, and now you have a connection from those two branches of the tree. Once that is done, you can remove the entire middle Templar area, okay? So all of these nodes have to go. And you're going to lose a little bit of dexterity in this process, so to make up for that, make sure you take Agility node over here for 30 dexterity. Right, we also have some nodes here we no longer need. You're going to get more life clusters in the Marauder side of the tree, so you can remove these, no problem. And then you also want to clean up the Witch starting area. Since we have a branch going up here, we don't need the Lord of the Dead and minion damage passives anymore. Okay, now you have a bunch of points you can spend on your character. First thing you're going to do is get these shield block passives on your tree. You want to get Arcane Guarding, okay? So this should be a lot of spell block for your character. Then you're going to go down over here to the Marauder side. You're going to get Retaliation skill damage, Flow of Battle, Retaliation skill cooldown recovery. You'll take Cruel Retort. This makes it so every 4th retaliation skill you do critically strikes. That is really important for Elemental Overload uptime. Okay? Then you want to take these life nodes over here. Bloodless is great. Then you want to take these block nodes over here. This is going to give you attack block chance. Make sure to take block mastery over here. You want plus 1% chance to block spell damage per 5% chance to block attack damage. What that basically means is that if your character has a lot of attack block, you're going to get a little bit of spell block as well. Okay, so make sure to take that node. Then you want to take shield damage going into Aggressive Bastion. Go through the right side here so you get chance to block attack damage. Then you want to take the Juggernaut node for life and armor, and the Barbarism node for life and resistances. So that should have been the massive change from the Witch and Templar side into the Marauder Duelist side, okay? Now let's go back up and clean up some of these passives. You're no longer going to have life mastery because I recommend you to have life on your chest. And the last thing you want to do here is pick up Elemental Overload, okay? Now that you have Cruel Retort, you are guaranteed to get crits on every 4th attack, and that is going to make Elemental Overload give us a lot of single target damage. Right, so that is the massive swap that I was alluding to. It's probably worth watching a couple times if you are confused in how to do this. Oh, and make sure you remove Glancing Blows, okay? We didn't just swap into all that block, so we can still take a portion of damage from blocked hits. Right, if you have any points left over, you can start heading towards the Golem Commander node. We're about to do Uber Lab once we get the yellow maps, and that's going to give you access to a total of 4 golems that are going to improve your damage, your clear speed, and your defenses. Now it's time to put the finishing touches onto our build. We're going to do one small transition from the yellow map configuration to the red map configuration. Alright, basically we want to move some of the points we took in the campaign into more efficient points that we now have access to in the final version of the tree. To start, we're going to remove Practical Application. You no longer need elemental resistances or dexterity from this node. You should be getting plenty from your gear. Then we want to remove Mystic Bulwark. Okay, there are better spell block nodes elsewhere on the tree. And then you want to remove Fire Mastery over here. Our final build does not have a lot of uncapped fire resistance, so we no longer benefit from that node. Right, then we want to move over to the bottom side of the tree here by the Templar. You want to basically unspec out of all of these nodes, okay? These were really good during the campaign, especially since Glancing Blows was right there. But now we have access to better block nodes elsewhere on the tree. Right, so if we look real quick, that should be all the respecs we have to do. So go ahead and lock that in. So what are we going to spend our remaining points on? All right, first of all, you can get the Deep Thoughts node over here. This is going to give you back some mana sustain you lost. Then you want to take Mana Mastery for increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. Combine that with Sovereignty later on in the end game. That's going to give you access to another 50% reservation aura for your build. Right, probably Malevolence is what you want to use. Right, next we want to take the Fire Mastery here. You want to take 40% of physical damage converted to fire. You should now be using Diadem Dawn, and that is a belt that makes you deal no physical damage. Right, in order to benefit from the physical damage on Rebuke of Laval, you're going to have to convert it into fire damage where possible, or any other element also works. So make sure to take that to increase your Ignite damage per second. Then you want to spend your points on damage over time multiplier into Acrimony here. Then we're going to get some shield block nodes down by the Templar side. So there's spell block here, leading into safeguard. This is just a massive amount of spell block that is far more efficient than taking Mystic Bulwark or the Arcane Sanctuary cluster over here. Right, and while you are in this area, you also want to take armor and energy shield nodes, leading to Faith and Steel. Alright, here you want to pick up Armor and Energy Shield Mastery. That makes you recover 5% of your energy shield over 1 second when you take physical damage from an enemy hit. Right, we're going to combine this with Divine Shield. This is a keystone passive that makes it so that you cannot recover energy shield higher than your armor. You should have plenty of armor now, so that's not really a problem. But what we really want to take this node for is that 3% of the physical damage you prevent from hits is regenerated as energy shield per second. So anytime we take physical damage from an enemy hit, our energy shield recovery is going to skyrocket, and it's going to make us deceptively tanky against multiple hits. Alright, so make sure to take Divine Shield. Then you want to take the nodes beside it, which is Armor and ES, leading into Sanctum of Thought. Then this is going to give us access to Armor and Energy Shield Mastery again. Here you want to take 100% increase Armor and Energy Shield from your equipment if all your equipment has Armor and Energy Shield. Basically, this checks to see if you are using Armor ES Hybrid Gear, and if all of your slots contains Armor ES Hybrid Gear, you're going to get a benefit to the amount of defenses it provides. Very, very important. The next thing we want to do is go to the bottom side here. We removed Shield Mastery from Sanctuary, I believe. Alright, we took out some Mastery nodes here. You want to put them back in. So Shield Mastery here, you want to take chance to block attack damage per 5% chance to block unequipped shield. And then you want to use this Retaliation cluster to get 80% increased duration of ailments inflicted by retaliation skills. And that should be all of your passives. So let's put all of these in. Click Apply Points. And now you are at the level 83 red map configuration. The last thing I want to do is talk about the Ascendancy and the order in which you should take your nodes. Now obviously in normal lab you're going to take Shaper of Flames. This is going to give you access to the Ignite Eviscerate gameplay. In Cruel Lab I recommend you take the Shaper of Storms node. This is going to make it so that your hits always shock and that your shock always increase damage by at least 25%. This is a massive damage increase for our character in the campaign. Next, in Merciless Lab, you want to take Mastermind of Discord. This is going to give you better exposure, so you should have access to the exposure mechanic through Wave of Conviction. This is going to give you an extra minus 25% to the affected resistance, and you're going to get a little bit of mana back if you've inflicted exposure recently. Very nice. After yellow maps, you want to take Liege of the Primordial. This is your Golem node. The reason we've waited so long to take this is because Golems are a little bit of a mess to manage in the campaign. The Golems have a ton of life, they have a ton of buff effectiveness, they're going to make your build feel really, really good to play. Okay, so that is your Uber Lab Point Liege of Primordial, and that is your Ascendancies for this build. And that's a wrap. Or was it a burrito? Jokes aside, I think that covers just about everything I wanted to tell you about this build. If you're wondering where the leveling and campaign section of the video is, I've included an unlisted video in the description that walks you through Acts 1 to 3 and the Eviscerate Transition. I highly recommend checking this out if you want to play the build. You'll also notice that there is no end game min-max configuration. You'll have to check back on LEAGUESTART to see where I decide to take the build. I've seen others do energy shield stacking with ephemeral edge to maximize damage. You can also use Mage Blood and Melding of the Flesh for a tankier setup if you want to take this build in the Delve. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and a huge thanks to my friend Xanaz for helping me with this build. Some starters require a lot more fine-tuning to make sure it feels good to play, and I couldn't have done this one by myself. So thanks again. Like if you found this video useful, and consider subscribing for more Path of Exile content. Your support really does help the channel. Good luck with LEAGUESTART, and I'll see you soon with a new video.
Bye bye.